everybody. How's it going? Welcome to another episode of the AFC podcast. I got a very special guest here with us today. His name is Brian Russell. He's actually an Astor Award-winning filmmaker from season 2 of the Triborough Film Festival. If you were here last year, you would have seen Not the Same Clarence. And he has a new movie coming out, going to be playing at the Triborough Film Festival at the Zucker Theater on January 25th, and that movie is Silver Sizzle. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping by, and let's have a cup of coffee and just hear what Brian Russell has to say. Good morning, Mr. Russell. How are you?
Good morning, Phil. I'm great. How are you?
I'm actually doing pretty good. Woke up a few hours ago, caught up on submissions, everything. I'm really excited about this year, and it's like, you know what? Like, I'm really just starting to really enjoy this now.
Awesome. It's nice when the ball starts rolling, when it's got a little momentum behind it. And I guess probably by year 3, that's when things maybe come together a little bit more easily.
Did you ever notice how on like maybe some TV series, like the first 2 seasons, they're still figuring out who or what they are, what the show is really about. But then by season 3, you kind of have like an establishment and an idea of like who the main characters are, what it's really about, and where it might all be heading towards?
Yeah, 100%. So many times.
Do you have a favorite TV show or anything like that?
Do I have a favorite TV show? Well, I have a lot of favorite TV shows, but I'm actually not, in the modern era, I'm much more of a movie watcher than a TV watcher. But I would say that historically speaking, the classic Star Trek original series is one of my favorite shows of all time. I was a sci-fi dorky kid that my parents did not understand, but I love that show since the first time I watched it. I love the modern, actually, Star Trek. What's it called? I'm blanking now, but the one that has Captain Pike and Spock, and you know, it sort of harkens back to the original series. It's Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So I love that show a lot. You know, and then I'm good for a sitcom every now and then too. I've been enjoying Man on the Inside lately.
Man on the Inside? I'm going to look that up. What's that about?
Yeah. Ted Danson plays an old-timer who is hired to infiltrate a nursing home to find out who stole a family heirloom from one of the patients. Or one of the residents. It's right up my alley. As you know from watching my films, I've made a bunch of films about older people. Yeah. And, you know, in that age bracket. And so it's one of the things my younger son texted me actually and said, "Dad, you got to watch this. It's you know, it's right up your alley."
A Man on the Inside, 8 episodes. All right, it's new.
It is brand new.
All right. All right. You know, it's funny, like being involved in the film industry, like time, you only have so much time. And it just seems like, not that I'm missing out on a lot of things that are kind of mainstream right now, but, you know, the volume is so big and there's only so much. And like being involved in the independent film world, you know, I consider myself blessed for being able to see like over 130 films in the last 2 years that were just all independent, New York City for the most part. They were all local films. And like, you know, I got to say, like, there's no, like, I can't think of a really good reason or a plausible reason why you guys are not mainstream in some capacity, because I feel like it's really the whole world that's missing out on some, you know, some really good films. I
agree. I think I mean, we could talk about this now or later or whatever, but one of the things that one of the challenges is that at the end of the day, at least for me, I don't know about everybody else, but I do this because I want to make some kind of art and because I honestly can't not do this. When you make art, especially in the modern era where the technology to make this kind of art is quite accessible, you end up with, it's a really old-timey supply and demand issue. You know, I've been to, I don't know, 120 festivals in the last 3 years. I've probably seen 1,000, 2,000 short films. And when we talk about TV, you know, I don't know, are there maybe 8 to 10 kind of fairly major streamers, if you include things like Peacock and Paramount Plus? There's so much stuff you can't possibly watch it. You know, when I was a kid, there were 3 channels that had new content. The other channels that I could watch there were only another 2 or 3 channels that I could even get because it was a rooftop antenna. There was no cable or anything. And those shows, those other channels showed reruns of shows from the the last whatever 30, 40 years of TV at that time. But now we've got all these major streamers, plus you still have 5 or 6 classic television networks producing producing new content. You simply can't watch it all. So, and same thing for movies. Like, you go to film festivals and you watch all these movies, and people often ask me the question, like, how do you make money with a short? And my answer more recently back to them is, how do you make money with a feature? I don't do this to make money. If somebody comes along with the truck full of money, I will take it and I will make movies for them. Right. But that is not my expectation. I just do this because I love it. I like meeting people like you. I like going to film festivals. That's a long roundabout answer to sort of that topic of what there is to watch. But and I don't mean it to sound cynical, because I don't think it is cynical.
No, I don't get that from you. How long would you say that you've been a filmmaker now?
3 years. 3.5 years.
Come on. 3.5?
Yeah.
Stop, bro. No. All right. Yeah. Okay. Time out. What were you doing 5 years ago then?
So, to be fair, I'm still a freelance video producer. So my day job is I make, corporate videos and nonprofit fundraising videos, other things too, but those are my 2 main buckets. So I knew about using a camera, and I knew about this sort of, like, I guess you'd call it documentary style storytelling. Throughout the last, I've been doing that for about 14 years. Like, I changed careers in my 40s. So we were sort of getting near the end of the pandemic. It was 2021, and I called up my buddy and I was like, dude, if I shoot one more talking head interview, I'm gonna blow my brains out. I'm like, we gotta do something else. And we were all screening for a festival at that time, actually, a festival that never happened. And honestly, I was like, I'm watching so many of these movies that are submitted, and these movies are terrible. I'm like, we could definitely make something better than what I'm watching. And right. He had a script, and we made that short film. We made his script. He acted in it. I directed it. And, I was like, oh my God. It was like one of those key moments in life where it's like the heavens open up. And I was like, right. This is what I need to be doing.
Nice, man. There's an old saying that I think it came I think before the Civil War broke out, but it was by Abraham Lincoln. I believe he was quoted, and I think it goes like, if he was given 8 hours to chop down a tree, he would spend 6 of those hours sharpening his axe. And it just seems like, you had so much experience about, being familiar with the equipment and all I guess sort of like the time it took to actually prepare for something like this. It just really shows in your work, because it looks like when you swung the axe, you dropped that tree so quick. And
well, thank you.
No, honestly, because first of all, your lead actor, who was it, Mr. Naughton?
James Naughton, yeah.
Yeah. So I was not familiar with him until somebody in the audience during the Q&A last year even brought him up, and I'm like, what are they talking about? So naturally, during the festival last year, I Googled him. So is he a Tony Award winning stage actor?
Yeah, he's won 2 Tonys. He won a Tony for City of Angels and a Tony for Chicago.
Chicago, I noticed, but City of Angels, wasn't that was that on Broadway first before it went on HBO?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what the chronology was. I did not see City of Angels, but City of Angels, I want to say, was early 90s on Broadway.
Okay. Yeah, it must have been, because I remember seeing that when I was a kid, because I think my parents only had HBO for not even a year, and then we weren't allowed to have it anymore because it was well, not suitable for young children.
Too racy.
A little bit, but I grew up watching movies on mainstream TV where RoboCop would be on. It's just oh, this is nothing. This is cool.
Yeah, I mean, City of Angels was premiered in 1989, I guess, and it played for 3 years on Broadway. I think it's its own thing, though. I don't know if it's the same as the HBO thing or not.
So what did he play? Did he play the lawyer in City of Angels?
He played. I don't remember. I'm looking here quickly, but I just can't remember. He won. It was best male lead in a musical, something like that. That's what he won for in this.
So obviously he could sing really well.
Yeah, he's a great singer. As a matter of fact, I do not recall if I submitted this film to you, but I did a film. My first film with James Naughton was called Past Prologue, and I actually wrote a song that he sings for the end credits of the movie. And that was a pretty cool. That was cool, cool experience to write that song and then for him to agree to sing it and then to have it in the credits was fun. Because
So I mean,
that's
like
what he's.
oh no, go ahead. I don't want to cut
No,
you off.
I mean that's what he won for was singing.
So I mean, like, yeah, like because like I'm really not familiar too much with like the stage community that well. Like when I finished college, naturally, like everybody go to the cattle calls, I apply, sing, not dance very well or something. But I just never seemed to quite either the timing wasn't right or I never seemed to like really just land anything. Like I auditioned at Telsey and Company a few times and places like that. But it's just curious. Like, did he have experience, like maybe doing some film work in the past, or was he more like getting back into it, or through you? That's when it really started.
So, I mean, he has a 50-year television and film career.
Okay.
So I'll tell you this really quick story, but in 1974, I was 7 years old. And there was a TV show on Friday nights, and it was called Planet of the Apes, and it was a television adaptation of the film series. James Naughton played one of the two lead humans in that show. So he was like 27 years, I don't know, he was young, 27, 28 years old when he played that role, but that's when I first was introduced to him. Then over the next, through modern day, he's been in shows like Gossip Girl, Ally McBeal, Who's the Boss? I think he was on Who's the Boss for like a couple seasons, like as a series regular. And then tons of movies. He was in the First Wives Club. I don't know if you looked at his IMDb. He has he's been a very, very successful working actor for the last 50 years. So him even agreeing to be in my short film was nothing short of a miracle. And I happen to have his email. He lives near me, and I had his email through a corporate project that I'd worked on a bunch of years ago, or a nonprofit project, I guess. And I sent him my script, out of the blue, just cold. And lo and behold, he answered me and he read the script. And the first thing he said was, the central action is not well developed. That was the sum total of his notes. So I emailed him back and I said, well, if I rewrite the script to work on the central action, will you read it again? And he said, yes, I will. His emails are always very short, so I couldn't read what he was really thinking. So I rewrote the script with my co-writer, Ross Popik, a bunch of times. And, then he ghosted me. I didn't hear from him for a couple months. And then out of the blue, in the summer of 2022, June of 2022, I get an email that says, Brian, my daughter has read the script and was quite moved. I'm available in July, but not available in August.
So you got it in.
So we scrambled, and 2.5 weeks later, we were shooting the film. And went on to play at a whole bunch of festivals, and it was the beginning of a really nice collaboration, because now we're pretty friendly. I'm writing we've actually worked on 4 projects together, 3 films and 1 kind of like documentary thing, and now I'm writing another narrative film for him that will hopefully shoot this winter. It's actually pretty much it's mostly written at this point, so I'm hoping to shoot it this winter.
Well, what inspired you to actually write something like Not the Same Clarence?
So, Not the Same Clarence, I had visited a friend of mine in memory care a bunch of years ago. And when I was there, he looked at me and he said, I know the code, I can escape. Because in memory care, there are always locked wards, and there was a code. And I just thought it was really funny. And he had this gleam in his eye when he said it. And he also told me it was his anniversary and his wife was coming to visit him later that day. I don't think it was his anniversary. But that's what he thought it was. Yeah. So those 2 nuggets turned into a not very good screenplay. And then, I don't know, it just got put in a drawer. I wrote it before I was making movies. And then I had my son rewrite it, Sam, who was in the festival with Be Nice to Fish last year, and not the same Clarence. And Sam rewrote it and punched it up with some humor. And then we didn't do anything for years. And then subsequently, my father-in-law came down with Alzheimer's. And I was very, very close with him. He passed away this past summer. But our experiences with him led Sam and I to pull the script, dust it off, pull it out, and rewrite it. And we rewrote it much more with an eye towards my father-in-law and towards an eye of what's the central conflict here? The conflict is, what does it take for family to understand they have to go to this person and meet them where they're at? So we rewrote that. I had already worked with James Naughton in past prologue. I sent him the script. And, it's I would say the first time it took him 6 months to say yes. The second time it took him 6 hours. And when he called me up to say he was in, he said, what do you think if my son plays the son in the movie? And I was like, can your son act? And,
yeah, not for nothing.
And he was great. So it was a really fun experience.
Well, the one thing that really caught my attention about that film, other than it being just a really just a great movie, was just literally the execution. Because when I'm looking at the credits and I see double names and I'm like director, father, son, actor, father, son, and I see like this parallel, like what was that like experience like working like father, son, both behind and in front of the camera for you?
Yeah, it was honestly awesome. I think for Jim and Greg Naughton, playing father-son allowed them an intimacy and a vulnerability and a shorthand that would have been a lot harder to achieve. Now, they're both pros, so they would have figured it out no matter who they were acting against. But sure, having the ability to act with their the father-son, I think really helped them get to where they had to get for those roles, because they're emotional parts. They're parts that require them to really be people who they are not. So it really is acting. And then in terms of working with my own son on the writing and directing, I don't know, you raise your kids and you work hard to have a good relationship and to do the right thing. And when we get to a point in time like this where we're able to like really work together as equals, is a pretty magical experience. It's also, as a parent, you're used to being the one, you're the parent. You're always the parent. You always think you're right. But when I'm doing this process, I have to realize when I'm not right. I have to realize when we have to compromise. I have to realize that I am not leading the charge, that we are doing this as a team. And, the writing was really smooth. I think each time we would balance each other out in terms of solving problems, in terms of figuring it out. The directing was pretty smooth. I enjoyed directing with him. In general, I don't really want to co-direct, but I would co-direct with Sam because I think we have enough. Like Jim and Greg, there's sort of a shorthand and an understanding. I mean, Sam and I have been talking about movies literally since he was like 5, 6 years old. I remember taking him to see the Iron Giant in theaters.
Oh, that's been nice.
And he was little. I don't remember what year that movie came out, but I think it was the 90s still.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was like either 98 or 99. I could look it up.
So he was probably 6, 7 years old, maybe. So directing with him was really nice. Editing with him was honestly a challenge, and I think he would say the same thing, but it was a challenge that worked to the benefit of the film, because him and I had different ideas when it came to the editing, and we did co-edit. Like, I would take a pass, he would take and we shared the files back and forth. And we did have different ideas on some of that. But in the end, I think we ended up with a film that, the first few cuts of the film were fine, but they didn't really feel that emotionally impactful. And it felt kind of long. And I have the opinion that most short films are not short enough. I've seen a lot of short films that are 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and they should be 20% shorter than whatever it is that length is. So our goal was to get this film to the right length. And I think we achieved that. And also we entirely restructured the movie in the edit. And that is because of the creative tension that came of him and I having such different views and working together and having to work it out. It's the, right. If you allow conflict to happen, you can make really beautiful things. So neither one of us are conflict averse. I think we're both okay with having conflict, especially with each other. Not to the point where we're duking it out, you know what I mean? But
It's contention, like it's a lot of back and forth. It's like, no, I understand completely. And also, it's
so
like it's almost like you're fighting with yourself on a spiritual level because this kid is literally part of you, you know?
yeah, yeah.
You know?
But also, this kid is better than me.
Uh,
Like there are so many things that I see. Like he's the one I send all my scripts to have him read, and I often don't like his notes. And the reason I don't like his notes is because he challenges me.
sure.
You know, and but my work is always better because of his input. He sees the world in a different way than I see the world. I would like to think that it's in part the way he was parented, that we have allowed our kids to be fully creative. We allowed our kids to fully express themselves. You know, I was not given that when I was a kid. So I really had to dig my creativity out of a hole. At least that's how it has felt. You know, I mean, I was in my, you know, I'm 50. I was like in my mid 50s before I started writing. Or directing. You know, I mean, I did a little, those building blocks over the last 15 years. Yes, that's true. But in terms of actually writing, actually directing, it took me a very long time.
Embark on your unique financial journey with Mid-Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union. Your aspirations, your milestones. We're committed to guiding you every step of the way. Whether you're saving for a dream home, planning for retirement, or seeking to consolidate debt, trust MHV to provide personalized solutions tailored to your needs. Our comprehensive range of products and services, coupled with expert financial advice, empowers you to make informed decisions and achieve your goals. Visit us online at mhvfcu.com to discover the tools and resources available to help you navigate your financial landscape with confidence and clarity. Your journey starts here.
You know, it really just kind of made me think of my dad, you know, because I try to like, there's no conflict, but there's like that little contention, not so much the butting of the heads, but just for you to like, you know, say something as brave and noble as you did, where it's just like, yeah, but he's better than me at this. And it almost seems like, you know, that you're becoming a student or younger again, because now you're learning in a sense. And it's a bit of a conflict for you because, wait, you're not supposed to learn from your son. You're supposed to be the one teaching him, right?
I think that's old style thinking. And I think that's one of the things that hurts us as a society. That,
yeah.
You know, listen, yes, I was the one who was supposed to teach him, and I did teach him. But people often say like, oh, he's following in your footsteps. But the truth is, he learned to edit when he was 10 years old. And him and I didn't do this when I was younger. I was in business. I had a completely different career. I was in my 40s when I started editing and doing anything with video production. And then when he went to college, he went to Ithaca College and got a degree in film. I felt like that him and I were in parallel on this track, and you know, learning at the same time. So he really didn't follow in my footsteps. I mean, I could take credit for introducing him to the movies. I can take credit for taking him to the movies when he was a kid. Yeah. Oftentimes inappropriate movies. You know, he went to lots of rated R movies before he was 10 years old. But you know, that's all I can really take credit for. And creating space, I think. Yeah. But so if he's not following in my footsteps, like that is not true at all. Like we have come up in this together in parallel.
Well, it seems like, you know, even though it's like, even though he may not have followed directly in your footsteps, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to walk together in something in the future, because you're not limited to just being the teacher. You're also the one still being educated on still. Yes, you could be a father and a son at the same time, and almost like allowing yourself to be a son again, where you're being led and learning more about yourself through your son.
Yeah, I hope that that's true, and I hope that remains true.
Well, I think, honestly, I think that's beautiful, man. Like, my dad was a firefighter, and I know he had a very creative side when he was younger. I never even knew that he performed in a play until many years later in my life. I think I'm going to connect the dots, but I don't know if my parents met through theater, but I just never actually asked, did you guys actually perform together? Because they both did say that they performed the same play together, but they didn't tell me that whether or not they performed at the exact same time. So my dad said he played in school. He played Bill Sykes in Oliver. And I know my mom even said at some point she also did play Oliver, but they never said that they were in the same show together, you know?
You
And
should ask.
I've always I should probably ask. I'm like, wait, did you guys perform in a play together? And that's how you guys like kind of met?
You should text them right now and ask them.
They're literally on the other side of the house. I'm upstate right now. I could ask them over breakfast. Dad, did you really play Bill Sykes? Mom, did you really play Oliver? Okay. Did you guys do that together? Because it's like still like my dad, he's got a great personality, and just like becoming a firefighter, you know, he just literally became this whole different dude, but he still has a bit of a creative side, and of course with a personality. And my mom especially, I just I kind of think sometimes if they would like, maybe do another play together, or I always try to get them like more involved in this, because like I was a construction worker, plumber. I had a background in a lot of different things until all of a sudden I tried theater. But then all of a sudden it's like this sucked me back in, even when I tried to leave so many times. And it just somehow here going on like 37, 38 years old, it's kind of starting to become a little bit fruitful, because I'm figuring out like where I fit in the industry, like what it is I'm actually good at. And then it's just like kind of like what you were saying before. Like, what if it's like my parents' turn to like maybe redirect their path and just revisit what they already know? But when they see someone like me doing it, it's like, well, if he could do it, I could definitely do it. And why not do it?
Yeah, well, you should cast him in one of your films.
I thought about that so many times, dude. And like I put my parents in a lot of the things I write.
You don't even have to give them the main part or the part that's based on them. So you've seen enough of my movies now to know that there's like my friend Mike Boland, I cast him. He's in every project I have. He's kind of like my good luck charm. Sometimes he's a lead, and sometimes just has two lines. But give your parents one of the parts that has two lines. And my friend Michelle, she wants to act, and she's in the film that I just finished. And I'll submit it for next year. But I'd give your parents a line or two to give them a reason to be on set. They could see how the sausage is made. You could be with them. It's, Sam has worked on most of my sets, which is always fun. Like even when he hasn't, even when he's not part of the creative team, he shows up and helps out, and it's great.
All right.
Have your mom and dad do craft services. That's always a good job too.
Oh, my mom would actually, she would crush that, to be honest. And my dad, he would actually, I know he would love to be in like the filmmakers village and just like watch everybody and understand what it is. Why are you here? Why are there like 50 people here? What do you do? Can we do it with just like 4 people? And then no. And then he'll just submerge himself and soak it up like a sponge. I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'll always ask questions. Why can't we just do it with 3 people? Oh, you could, but believe me, you don't want to. And now it's like, what was it I wanted to say? Like, oh crap! I just lost my train of thought, because now I'm thinking about finishing some of the scripts that I wrote, because I know I shared a couple ideas with you, and I guess I think
for the last like 9 months I've been telling you to write those ideas down.
But here's the thing. I wrote each and every single one of them down, and then I just started doing one scene at a time. A week later, I would do the other story, do another scene. A week later, I would do another scene. And
so you're working on them.
No, yeah, that's great. Like they're there. My thing is, it's more not so much about completion on time, because everything I do eventually gets done.
Yeah.
And I don't do it as a distraction, because what I've learned about myself, because I do not have a writing background per se. I have a reading disability, special education background that just, like everything was suppressed as far as creativity. And I'm like, putting that in my work and like finding my way through and navigating through a character on, where it comes from, whether it's fear or you got lied to, or you believe something that was not true and you created this personality like archetype, and you just kind of avoided or you uprooted your own spirit and decided to agree with somebody else's perception of you. That could be cool. So like,
I like that, uprooted your own spirit. I'm going to remember that one.
You can keep it. It's on the podcast. But these are the things that I'm learning about because it's literally a part of being a human being because we all have that in common. And the ominous thing I think it is that with this technology, we could actually, we could figure out more about ourselves through the other characters, not only that we portray, but the ones that we see.
Hmm.
And that's the thing that really connects us, I think, as a species, is when you take your own reflection just out of it. And I think, in a manner of speaking, you'll find a way that there's actually nothing different about you and someone else other than the perceptions that you were told.
Yep. Yeah, well, there's perception, I think that often is created through like unintentional programming.
Yeah, it could be I don't want to say defense mechanism or safety thing, because I think that's just part of our brain, I guess, in a sense where you want to look out for people, and you definitely want to look out for yourself. And somehow you kind of just maybe tell yourself a lie to protect yourself in a way.
Well, I know for me, like the discovery of writing and directing films and, becoming an artist, like today I would say I'm an artist, that those are the kinds of things that do help protect myself. Those are the kinds of things that help me become, I feel like, who I was always meant to be. And listen, there's all kinds of shit that happens when we're younger, but,
Sure.
And when we're growing up, and I think our parents all do their best. Sometimes, not in my case, and it sounds like not in your case, but sometimes the best that people can do is not very good. And I feel bad for those people like that. That sucks. But we're all dealt the hand that we're dealt with. But now, as an adult, it's my job to figure out who I am. It's my job to make sure my spirit is contained within me, and that I'm the one who's guiding the ship. It's my job to make sure that I'm the one that's actually doing things instead of just talking about doing things. Because it's easy to say, like, well, I want to make a movie, I want to write a script, I want to do this, but then you never ever do it. But among the things that I feel best about in this modern incarnation of Brian is that I actually, when I have an idea, I sit down and I write it. And then I finish it, and then I make the movie, and then I take the movie out into the world, and then I write the next movie. And I love that. And I'm like, I feel good about that,
I like that word. What'd you say? Incarnation? Incartation?
The incarnation, the current incarnation of Brian. Like, think reincarnated.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going
Yeah.
for, but I'm like, so he's the original then.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the original is, but I was born as somebody, then my parents turned me into somebody through raising me, and then I became somebody else when I got married and had children, and then I became somebody else as my kids grew up. And I don't think that I really made a conscious decision about who I wanted to be until about 10 or 15 years ago. That was the first time where I decided, what's the next incarnation of Brian going to be? Like, who do I really want to become? And what's gonna how am I going to beat the meaning out of life? Because I don't want to be one of those people that wakes up at 75 years old or 80 years old and I'm on my deathbed and I'm like, I don't know, what the fuck did I do with my life? Like, sure. If I die today, I could feel pretty good about what I've done with my life. And I feel like I've done something that rewarded my soul, my spirit.
Here. I wrestle with that sometimes because I think I even wrote there's this app called, I think, Medium, and it's like a journalism type of a thing, and I really like it because after you write or read something, you could actually listen to it audibly, and for me personally, that just gets me out of my head, and I could just hear the words on the page just better. So
Right.
I even wrote something, and that was just always my disability. I just couldn't read and understand what I was reading. Something visually would always just kind of like interfere.
Mm-hmm.
And, for example, like when I was taking music lessons, I couldn't read it. I knew the mechanics of it, but when I would read it, it would just like stop me cold in a sense. But when
Right.
when I shut my eyes, or I would listen to somebody do it, and then it was flawless. I could do it that way, but visually, I just couldn't get through it visually.
Sure.
It was weird, that's just something I struggle with. But I wrote I was just like, I don't know what the heck was going on that day. I remember that day too. I was flooded with tension, and it was just putting me into the couch where I almost couldn't even move. And I was watching, I think at the time, The Kingdom of Heaven, with Liam Neeson and Orlando Bloom and all those other actors who are just, their names are escaping me at the moment. I think even
Yeah, the Ridley Scott film. It's a great film. The director's cut, I hope.
it was on I think it was on TV, so it was
Right.
like there's no commentary or anything, but I know I have it on DVD somewhere with the director's commentary, and that those I
No,
wish
not the commentary, the director's cut. So there's two versions of the movie, and they're radically different. Anyway, I'm interrupting. I apologize.
no, I mean, it's just like, but what I did say in that what I did say while I was writing was I personally think, if, like, yes, that movie was very well done. I would have personally liked to have seen like something like that movie, even though I'm not a big fan of this style of like reboots in a sense. But what if they expanded on that and not do necessarily a remake, but there was some sort of other universe happening while all that stuff was going on amongst the soldiers and just literally fighting for the stronghold of Jerusalem, and just seeing an episodic done that way, and putting that in like in 8 episodes and just really expand on it and see, like, what are these guys really feuding about and fighting for? Because we understood the perspective of the leadership, but not the people around it. So I was just so heavy this one afternoon, and I just had to just start like writing through my app. It was struggling because I was literally trying to pull these splinters and pieces out of my brain, where it was just cut, like there was a beaver dam stuck in my brain, and I just like was picking each and every piece out of my head and just writing and getting this off my chest and writing. And I put a little article together because I think what I was struggling with at the time, and that just kind of got it like out of my system, was while I was watching that movie, was like I didn't have anything that I was at the moment, I don't think, really like proud of, because I didn't actually do anything yet, like, not like that sense of like fulfillment or accomplishment. And I don't know if it was before or after, like New York State gave me a citation last year, like, good job at the film festival. And I just can't remember if I wrote this before I was recognized or after. And for the record, I don't think I deserve that citation, like, all things considering, because a lot of people, I'm sure, dedicate a lot more time and energy for years and don't get recognition. And for me to get something in just under 2 years, I don't know. I did not feel like I deserved it. And I think that's why that beaver dam was like popping up. And I just thought I'd just write it out and see what happens. And I remember asking myself a question, like at the end of that little article, on why am I doing this? How did I get to this point? And then something popped into my head where I just asked the reader the question, do you know the story of Noah's Ark? And that's kind of like where it ended. And I kind of feel like that's exactly what the Astoria Filmmakers Club can be, in a manner of speaking.
Sure. Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is that I wouldn't be shy about having the recognition, because if you're doing a good job and people want to recognize it, I mean, take the recognition. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. I mean, I feel like I've been pretty lucky. I've been making movies for 3 years, and I've gotten a lot of festivals, and I've had a lot of nice recognition. And you know what? It's all good. Like, sometimes we get recognized, sometimes we don't. But when we do, it's a blessing.
It is. I just kind of felt like at the time, where it's just like, yeah, it's nice to be recognized, but man, I didn't feel like I deserved it yet, or I didn't earn it yet,
Well, pay it forward then. Earn it as you go forward.
I can do that. That's the name. Like, that I can do that. Yeah. Not a biggie. So what do you got coming up next? Like, what you said you were working on a film that you might submit next year.
Yeah, so Silver Sizzle is still making the rounds. That's only been out there, I guess, 7 or 8 months now. And that will probably be on the festival circuit for another 6 or 8 months or so, I guess. And, looking forward to having that play this year. And then I have a film that I've just completed called Cascades. and I've just started submitting it, so it hasn't been, it hasn't gotten in anywhere yet, but I think the first festivals that I would hear from will be in another week or so. I think December 15th. Well, actually, that's just another few days. I would expect to hear in the next few days from the first festivals about that film. I literally just finished it. I sort of cheated a little bit. I submitted a copy that was done, but the sound mix wasn't finished. It took a little while to get the sound mix back. So I started submitting it maybe a month or two ago, and which means that I will be able to hear from some festivals coming up, this December. And we'll see what happens. It's another short film. I have a great cast. I'm really excited about it. It's about a middle-aged couple who has an adult son who's a problem. He's a reckless drug addict, and the parents are at odds over how they should be handling their adult kid. And it's not about the kid. It's about the parents. It's very much about the parents. So it's kind of a heavy drama, but I'm excited about it. I think it came out. I think it came out pretty good.
How long is it?
Like 14 minutes. So
Keep it short and sweet, huh?
And listen, like I said earlier in our conversation, there were versions that were as long as 20 minutes, but it wouldn't be better at longer. Like it's at the perfect length right now. And short films can be too long, and I don't want to make a short film that's too long. And I think so far, I'm knocking on my desk. So far, I've been. I feel like the one thing that I've had a pretty good sense about is, the length, the right length.
Did you ever find like it complicated or challenging? Like, even though you did all that work to actually shoot all these scenes, and you feel like maybe you're not wasting them, but maybe you over prepared. Was it hard for you to like make those cuts?
No. In Clarence, it was a little hard. Clarence was the one. Actually, the movie Past Prologue. My earlier films, meaning like a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was harder. And it was because of that attachment thing. You're like attached to it. But sure. Now, I think because I've seen so many films that are only 15 minutes but feel like they're 30, I'm like, it has really clarified in my mind the need to be succinct with the storytelling and to avoid all repetition and to make sure that everything that's in there serves the arc of this story, the beginning, the middle, the end of this story, that every moment in this film should drive us towards the finish line. And that's made it a lot easier for me to now be like, all right, boom, this is going to go. This is going to go. Instead of getting hung up on it.
Is that easier for you now that you got a little bit more time and experience, and it's not about you kind of let go of the attachment style?
Yeah. Listen, killing my darlings is no problem now.
Well,
I shouldn't say no problem. Listen, like everybody, I struggle. And in fact, in Cascades, there is a moment that Sam told me I should cut. And I would often listen to him. But in this case, I actually went to a bunch of other people and said, "What?" I didn't say that he had said that. I just said, "What do you think about this moment?" And I got positive feedback on it, and I decided to go with what I wanted to do, which was to keep that moment. I didn't cut it. But other things got cut. I was like, this is repetitive. It's not necessary. It's just making it longer, not better. So
I see.
Gone. But yes, experience. Here's the thing, Phil. There's two kinds of experience. There's having the same experience and reliving it over and over. And they're doing the same thing over and over again for many, many years. So there are people that say they have 30 years of experience, but what they really mean is they have 1 year of experience relived 30 times. Then there are people who actually have experiences where each time they do the thing, they grow and do it differently and learn more. That's cumulative experience. So if somebody says they have 30 years of experience, and every year they're trying to improve and get better and do it differently, and they're willing to listen to others, because we don't have all the answers. I don't care if you're Barack Obama. I don't care how smart you are. If you're Aristotle, you don't have all the answers. Other people will help. But the only way to grow is listening to other people. So I think that I have 3.5 years of experience making movies, And I know a lot of other people who have done a thing for 10, 15, 20, 30 years who don't have they have experience, but they don't have the number of years of experience that they've been doing it, because they don't grow and don't change. They just do the same thing over and over again.
Welcome to Happy Corner. This project strives to make safe housing areas for stray cats at an affordable price. It's so easy to put together that even your children could have fun making one. Help keep cats and other animals safe with their own little Happy Corner homes. You can help this project become a reality by donating to the GoFundMe page. Happy Corner homes are a great way to show those animals in need it's okay to be happy.
That was probably one of the smartest and wisest things I've ever heard in my life.
Well, I don't know about that, but thank you.
No, I mean, honestly, like that really put it into perspective, where it's like, yeah, you got 30 years experience of doing one thing 30 times. So yeah, but then it's like, what if you did 30 things for 1 year at a time? How do you measure a scale like wisdom from all that experience, you know?
So that's my goal.
What was it? An accumulative experience? What was that?
Our cumulative experiences.
Our accumulative experiences.
So our cumulative experiences.
Now I understand.
We also can accumulate experiences. And I think that is different from having, cumulative experiences is where one thing stacks on top of the other. And, listen, I'm old. I don't have time to do it by myself. So I better be listening to other people, or I'm doomed.
Yeah, even but still, even when you're younger, it's wiser to, we've said this many times. If you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta just comment, because I was really conflicted last year about a certain nomination, because when you were cast, I guess it must have been, interesting to cast not the same Clarence, but I was really moved by the younger version of James Norton's character, when the younger selves, young dad self.
Yep, David A. Gregory.
So, okay, I was so conflicted about giving this kid a guy a nomination, because it was like I could hear exactly how he built this character, and he bridged such a huge gap between the older version of Clarence's current status. And when I heard how he changed his voice, and I'm like, wait a second, he's doing that on purpose. And I listened to it twice, and it sounded identical. I'm like, holy shit, great. He did it on purpose, and it was a great choice, and he was prepared. And I was so how could I not give this guy a nomination at least? And I'm like, because we have so many nominations, and I'm like, maybe if he had one more scene, it would have put him over the edge. And it's like,
Well, so David A. Gregory is the actor who played young Clarence. And he is amazing. He is a really gifted and talented actor. The dude should totally be famous. He came to the role with unbelievable, sort of grace and generosity, and it was a small part for him. He deserves to be the lead but I needed somebody for that role. As it happened, and I think David would be fine me talking about this, but David's dad had Alzheimer's and passed away earlier this year from Alzheimer's.
Oh, no.
And he had a lot of firsthand experience with this disease, and the brutality and the terror and the torture of this disease. So he was sort of all in from the beginning, and he did a remarkable job of transforming himself into young Clarence. And honestly, when he showed up on set, I had never met him in person. I had only met him, on Zoom, where I'm looking at this much of him. And I had seen photos of him online, and he must have been working out during the pandemic, because he showed up on set and he was much bigger and more jacked than I expected. And my first thought was wow, he really doesn't have the physicality of James Naughton anymore, because of the working out. But the moment he started speaking, I was like, all my worries went out the window. I knew that this was the right guy for this part. And it didn't matter that he had been, working out. That it didn't matter that 78-year-old Clarence and 40-year-old Clarence had different physicalities. And honestly, that could very well be the case in real life. Like, listen, we have a different physicality when we're younger than when we're older. But his performance was so spot on, and he did it without ever going into parody. And that's a really risky thing when you start trying to imitate someone else's voice, is that it can sound like parody. But yeah. I think from a mannerism standpoint, from a vocal standpoint, he really did transform himself into that character, and it totally sells it. I don't think for a moment you ever are taken out of the film because of the change in actor. And that was a gift for me and Sam. It was a gift for Sam and I to have actors of this caliber in the film. Every single one of our actors in that film, Silver Sizzle for that matter also, Silver Sizzle, which is playing, at your festival next month, not only stars James Naughton, but Boyd Gaines, who's a 4-time Tony Award winning actor, and was in multiple seasons he played Valerie Bertinelli's husband in One Day at a Time back in the 90s. He was in Heartbreak Ridge. He was in the Eastwood movie. He was in Porky's. He's been in a host of
God. He was in Porky's movies?
Yes.
Is he the guy with the beard right now with the Parkinson's?
Yeah, right.
Oh, my God.
That guy was actually... Kathleen McNenny was on Broadway in The Father with Frank Langella. We have I have been lucky to have these like really remarkable actors, but David is somebody I desperately want to work with again. He's a beautiful guy, but also really talented and gifted and hardworking actor. Like the dude showed up ready. He just has this little part in this movie, but he showed up 100% ready and committed.
Honestly, it really looked like these guys had fun doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we had a blast.
And honestly, like even the concept had a bit of a I don't want to say Wedding Crashers vibes, but it's like even kind of like with the expansion of getting a date at a graveyard or at the funeral is just like it's just like, how do you even approach the idea of dating at that part of your life in that context of your life? And it's like, it was definitely a comedy, but you didn't play it as a traditional comedy in a sense. It was so serious, and it just gave it that realistic, funny approach where you were watching a movie, but it was still real at the same time.
Right. I love that you said that. When I was talking to Boyd Gaines about the role, and Boyd is the most absurd character in the movie, I think. But when I was talking to Boyd about that role, he said to me, just to be clear, he said, I think that Buddy believes and is dead serious about every single thing that comes out of his mouth. Buddy is not saying these things to be funny, and Buddy is not saying these things, but he believes this stuff. And I was like, 100%. I'm like, we're not playing this for laughs. Hopefully we'll get some laughs because of the truth of it, but we're not playing it for laughs. And it's funny because in some audiences, it does play like a full-on comedy. But in other audiences, it plays much more subdued and more like a drama. And they both seem to like it equally. I like it when it plays as a comedy because you feel the room, come alive so much. But, I've never actually seen Wedding Crashers, believe it or not, but I've heard that comparison. Apparently there's a scene in Wedding Crashers where he goes to a funeral or graveyard or something.
Yeah. That was played as comedy. That was on that side of the spectrum. Yours was a little bit it was like the scales were balanced,
Yeah, more grounded.
Way more grounded, honestly, across the board, all of them. Actually, I would say Tombstone grounded because it was under and above the dirt.
True.
Fully pun intended.
Well, I hope people come out to the festival and watch all the movies. Watch my movie, of course, but watch all the movies.
We're going to come up with some marketing tactics this year on how to cross promote. I want to try to capitalize on social media because now that we have this, I don't think it existed last year, but now there's that collaborate button on Instagram where you can actually.
Yes.
So, like, I really appreciate that because not only can I tag, I could also click on like the profile of who's also co-hosting like that graphic. So if it's like whether I put the trailers on the Instagram, I could hit collaborate and would actually take you directly to like the other person's page.
Yeah.
If it actually goes the other way and people are having trouble with the links on how to get more information when you collaborate with the festival page, all the information is right there in the bio and you'll find everything immediately. So to navigate, it actually just kind of bridges that digital gap much cleaner, I think.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, I mean, last year, I know we had about 470 people for all the screenings mathematically, and I think it went up to over 560 once we did the culture lab. So the volume was definitely there and it was pretty good. This year, I really, I would imagine after having like almost twice as many films being displayed in just a few extra short hours, we're probably going to have 3 or 4 days easily of screenings. And like we're still working on like now the final date to actually conclude and do the award ceremony because it kind of just, it didn't outgrow itself, but it's like, oh, we expanded a little bit. We got to just bring it back and probably utilize weekdays, not just the weekends too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's amazing when things grow and when people show up, you know, having people in the screenings, to me, that's everything. Like, I don't want to go to a screening where there's 5 people in the audience.
Yeah.
You know, so like when you're doing the kinds of things you're doing to get people there and then doing the kinds of things you're doing to, you know, to make it fun for the filmmakers, that's amazing. Like those are the festivals I go back to, you know. So I as a filmmaker, I appreciate that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that because, like I was saying before, I'm still like figuring out what the AFC actually is, how it works, and what it can be, how like the point of it is to be of service to the filmmaking community. How could I optimize and capitalize on that? Because I know you asked before, but I didn't really get to tell you like how all this began, basically. So just to kind of bring it back up to speed, it's our first time. Are you hard up on time? Do you got to get going soon?
I have another 10 or 15 minutes.
All right. Well, we could lock this down in 10 or 15 minutes. So back in 2019, I did a small role on a film called The Degenerates. And coincidentally, that director who I was working on, he brought his film into the festival this year because he finished a new one. And that's called, I think, Walking on Eggshells. But back then, we did a movie called The Degenerates, and every time I would actually get anything as an actor, it would always be so far and in between, and usually it's just word of mouth. Like 10 years ago, easily, like backstage, I was getting things left and right, and you know, it was there was a lot of momentum. The auditionings were good, sometimes the bookings were good. The money was always nothing, but I was getting the experience, and I was shaking a lot of hands, and it was worth it. But I remember it really started to get it started to get not a burden, but it really started to get like I started to feel the weight of it because it was spreading me out so thin in a way where I was kind of conflicted where I'm not getting fulfilled by it as much as I used to. I was getting tired, you know, just from life.
Right.
And of course, like you got to pay the rent. And I'm like, how do I balance this?
There's that.
Yeah, so there was one afternoon while we were on set. We were filming in Staten Island for The Degenerates, and it was a decent role. The movie came out really funny for a Staten Island movie, and I'm like, this is great, especially for a Staten Island movie. It was great, but I even asked the question. I'm like, guys, like, how would you guys like? Do you know of any like filmmaking communities? You know, because I told them basically what I told you, that everything is just so far and in between. How do we like, maybe find somebody to continue working with and maybe come up with something original and just, you guys ever heard of a clubhouse or anything like that? And they're like, no, I never heard of one. So it got into my head because when I kind of searched around for filmmaking communities, they were just not quite, they didn't pop up on my feed or anything, and I just couldn't find any. So I decided to just say, all right, we're going to start meeting people and figure that out. So several months later, it was like late July of 2019. The whole incident with a cat that fell off a roof happened like a week before the meeting. Yeah, that's a totally different story. But believe me, it was all around that exact same week where things were just happening like that one week. And I just started having mixers and meetups every Wednesday night for several months. And some people were like, "Hey, are you the guy that saved that cat?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how'd you know about that?" "Oh, it was all over the internet." And it's like, you're on New York One News. I'm like, "Oh, you saw that?" I honestly, like, it was just, all right, thanks, man. Yeah, that was me. So what ended up happening was it kind of just evolved, and then it became a corporation, and then it became a charity, a 501c3, and then all of a sudden we get like the pandemic just shuts the world down. 2 years goes by, and I still don't know what I'm doing with my life, and what do we do? So I'm like, you know what? We don't know who's still around or what this is, so that's all right. I can still hear you. So we don't know what happened to the entire filmmaking community, like just prior to the pandemic, because over 100 people had shown up. And I said, what if we put together a film festival just to see who's left and see if we could start from there and just know who's a filmmaker, who knows what they're doing, and just see what we could do. And and I always wanted to do the Triborough Film Festival for many years. I just didn't know how to do it. But once I had the AFC established, and I'm like, all right, we'll just have it be our main event. And we've seen the Oscar ceremonies 1,000 times in our lifetime. So why don't we just do the minor league version of that and just build from there?
Oh, that's interesting. I actually assumed that the festival was first. So the idea was that you started something, and then the festival grew out of the sort of this umbrella that you created the umbrella first, and then the festival grew out of that.
Yeah, that's right.
That's cool. That's really cool.
So yeah, well, I'm thinking I treat it like a church. I treat it like the Little Rascals Clubhouse, where we're a bunch of kids coming together, just building stuff, and then driving around go-karts and just having fun.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome.
It's I think it's growing because we were able to collaborate. We were able to put together one script, and we performed it as a podcast play, and we got the chamber, which is a writer's room where you can collaborate on something original. And once you meet somebody and you need the resources to actually like get together, we may actually this year have a tangible physical space where we could actually sit down and work together in at a table setting. But up until now, it's just been digital.
Right. Yeah, but that's pretty great, Phil. I mean, it sounds super cool. I mean, I know that I'm not sure who was the organizer of this, but one of the things that I went to that event that you guys had, it was like all the Queens film festivals, and you guys did like a panel, and that was a lot of fun. Actually, Sam and I both went to that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I got to meet you. That's right.
That was the first time we met in person.
I'll never forget the red shoes.
I always have them.
Honestly, I'm like, I know that was a Tom Hanks movie, right?
Well, there was a movie called The Man with the One Red Shoe, but that's not the basis of it. There's a 1948 movie called The Red Shoes, and it is about, it's kind of about ballet, but really what it's about is what are we willing to sacrifice to make great art? And that's what the film, that's what my company's named after is that movie.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, I had a pair of red sneakers before I had even a video company. And when I started the video company, I started wearing the sneakers more just because they felt creative. And one thing led to another, and then I named the company after it, and here we are.
So you felt empowered by the red shoes?
I did, 100%.
Is there any ruby slipper element to it?
There is not. I actually don't really like The Wizard of Oz very much. I should not probably admit that.
That's all right.
But, I guess I could just say yes. All the red shoes in cinematic history have informed me as an artist.
I think there was a dancing movie way back when, the ballet shoes. Was that the one you were talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's why do you dance? It's not because, or why do you live or breathe? Well, it's not because I want to, it's because I must. And it's like, that's my answer too.
That's 100%.
I remember that movie. Yeah. And you know who actually I watched that movie with and spoke about it with who I told you about? That was Nino.
Oh, wow.
Same guy.
It's a crazy movie. That's funny because, he was older, right? So it would make total sense that would be a movie that he would connect with.
Yeah, he passed away in June of 2021. I believe he was either he just was about to or just did turn 80 years old, and that was a hit. That was a real that was a real blow.
Right. Yeah, no, it's tough. I mean, I've had it happen. I had a friend of mine, he was older and he ended up getting cancer and he died within 6 months. He was 79 years old and I had known him for about 10 years. I met him when he was like 69. And, you know, but this is the way life works, my friend. With life comes death.
Yeah, it's like you can't really take anything for granted. And I think the interesting is when you actually like, you know, when you really have a good friendship with anybody, the things that you talk about and the impression they leave on you, that stays alive inside of you. And you'll get glimpses of it once in a while, just like we did now with that conversation. I'm like, oh, yeah, that Nino told me that.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's cool.
Well, it's all in our heart. It's in our spirit, as long as you don't uproot it.
Yeah. Well, that is an excellent point. Do not uproot the important shit.
No. Stay grounded, stay planted.
Yeah.
Just don't get stuck in the mud when it rains.
Or one could say bloom where you're planted.
Yeah. Prosper where you're planted, bloom where you're planted, and, you know, pollinate.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Brian, this was an absolute delight. I'm so glad we got to just spend like a little one-on-one time together.
This was super fun. Thanks for having me, Phil.
Oh, it was my pleasure. If anybody wanted to actually get in touch with you, what's the best way for anybody to do that?
Well, my website's probably the easiest way, redshoefilm.com. Red like the color, shoe like footwear, and film like something we used to take pictures on. .com. And that'll get you to my socials. It'll get you to my older films that you can watch. It'll get you to, you know, my corporate work, my nonprofit work. You know, basically everything Brian is at redshoefilm.com.
Copy that. And before we wrap up, I always end on a segment called The Right Words at the Right Time. When I first started out doing this, I was reading a book called The Right Words at the Right Time, and I was really, you know, inspired by reading these articles and little letters of these interviews of all these household names, because once upon a time, none of these people were actually world famous, but they all had this one thing in common where they were given the right words at the right time that just kind of, you know, kept them grounded to just never give up and keep going. So what I wanted to do is ask you and every guest I ever have the exact same question. So my question, Brian Russell, has anybody ever given you the right words at the right time that just always stuck with you and got you through everything and was always there for better or worse? Or do you have any words of your own that you would like to share for others to hear?
Well, I guess I'll tell you two things. One is something that was told to me a long time ago. This guy named Vito Montelli said to me, you know, Brian, sometimes the days are slow, but the years fly by. And that one has always stuck with me, that even when I've got a bad day, it's going to pass. And that before I know it, you know, before I know it, my time will be up. And that's kind of what that meant to me. And it's something that really helps me sort of like embrace the moment and live in the moment, but also know that if this moment isn't great, that there's more moments coming. And they're going to be here before I know it, even when it feels like a long time. And then the other one, this is one that my kids will probably laugh at, but I've always said this, it's easier to earn $1 million than it is to win $1 million. So work hard.
And Sam told you that one?
No, I told Sam that. I'm saying I told my kids this one.
Oh, right.
No, this is something that I have told my kids.
I got
as
you.
They were growing up. It's easier to earn $1 million than it is to win $1 million. That's a Brian Russell original. And
that's a Brian Russell original. All right.
And it sort of comes from this idea that, listen, I want the world to be the best place that it can be. I want the world to give us the most opportunities. But I also know that we live in a difficult place. And if we don't work our asses off and we don't show up and we don't try our best, then probably nobody's going to give it to us. Certainly playing the lottery is not going to get it for us. You know, I would have a better chance of becoming a famous actor than winning the lotto. And we know what the chances are of that.
No, I mean, dude, honestly, if I think you would actually make a fine actor, or even put like a little like Hitchcock cameo of yourself in there where you do that one thing where you kind of steal the show.
Well, I've showed up in a couple of my movies. I think the next one I got to make a more concerted effort to get my mug in there.
I'm trying to think of that one character from Charles Dickens where it was like Marley. Could you make yourself into a 3D printed tombstone or sculpture or something and just have you in the background, like right there? That would be a nice touch.
Yes. So, well, Phil, it's been great. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, man. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you next month. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the AFC podcast. Don't forget to check out storyoffilmmakers.org. Check out the Triborough Film Festival. You're going to see, I think you're in is it the 1 p.m. or the 3 p.m. segment?
I forget. Yes, one of those.
It's one of those on Saturday afternoon at the Zucker Theater. It's a very good lineup. You're going to see Silver Sizzle sending it home and batting last in the segment. It's going to end the segment on a very high note. Brian Russell, you're an absolute delight. Thank you so much for coming. I'll let you go about your day. Have a wonderful day, and I'll leave you with this. Wherever you go, in all that you do, always remember to never forget community, creativity, and joy.
Right on, man. Thanks, Phil.
Great one. Give Sam my best.
I will. Talk to you soon.
Ciao for now.
Bye.